These dang Gen Z baristas are asking off again. And they want to raise too. What am I going to do?
Stop being a little
Yeah, so we just got into some spicy tea, if you know what that means. Speaking of Gen Z, why do owners hate their baristas? And it turns out baristas are mostly Gen Z, right? So maybe there is a generational thing there. But turns out, spoiler alert, it is kind of all your fault as the owner too. So
as always.
Sorry, bad news again.
Well, we dove in, we swam around the topic, and we've got that coming right up. But before that, I want to point your attention to Localize. Localize is our premier
exclusive.
They are the only one that we work with. SEO agency ran by our good friends Kent and Zane. Shout out, guys. LocalizeGrowth.com/Valor. They have exclusive deals. Grace, I'm just going to start over on that part. If you go to LocalizeGrowth.com/Valor, you'll see some exclusive deals just for Valor listeners or watchers, talking to you, YouTube and Spotifyers, including a website kickstart for coffee caterers valued at thousands of dollars.
Priceless.
I'd say priceless.
Even priceless. You can get it for $9.99. Hope that's accurate.
I thought it was $8.99. We are awesome.
We are awesome.
.com/Valor. If you go to localizegrowth.com/Valor, you can get a website kickstart for your catering company for $1,100. It comes with flash quotes built in.
Dang.
I know, right?
That's smooth.
That's smooth.
Plus, you can shop their other recurring SEO packages, which are on a more month-to-month basis, which you also get a cut rate on when you shop through localizegrowth.com/Valor. Nothing has transformed our catering operation more than SEO.
It's our storefront.
That's right. After that, I think we should just jump in to the show.
Okay.
Consider us jumped.
Think we can do a 40-minute podcast?
Definitely.
Oh, definitely.
Great.
Absolutely.
How are we going to jump right in? Let's jump right in.
Here we are on a hot mic on a Wednesday. That can only mean one thing.
Podcast. What did we talk about last week? Where were we last week? And how does that lead into this week?
Great question, Ethan. Well, we talked about why employees, specifically baristas, since this is a coffee podcast,
Guilty.
hate. I'm sorry we use that word, but
Ugly word.
We're about to use it again.
Oh, jeez.
Why they don't trust or hate their owners. Not their owners, but like the owners of the coffee shop.
Yeah.
So much potential disconnect there. Obviously, like demographics of different baristas or owners and where they're at in life. Different, generations involved. You got your millennials, you got your...
Everyone has a story, man.
Everybody's crapping on Gen Zers all the time. So we thought we'd follow up organically with why owners hate their baristas.
Ooh.
Quickly, what coffee are we drinking, Ethan?
Oh yeah, quickly. We have a lot of coffee. I pulled up an oldie but a goodie, a Chiroso Natural from Cabresto in Colombia.
Oh,
Nice.
Yeah,
cool.
in Andes.
In honor of my favorite t-shirt.
In honor of your favorite t-shirt.
Is that your favorite?
And
I think it's my favorite t-shirt.
and some of our favorite people that we met along the way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that's what's funny. 2-3 months later, still tasting like a really yummy cuppa. Thanks to its freshly ground experience on the Weber EG1.
Not sponsored.
And brew via the fellow stag.
XF.
Also not
XF.
sponsored.
With third wave water.
Formerly sponsored.
It's hard to mess that up, man. It's hard to mess it up.
We're about to start selling third wave water.
Yes. Yeah.
It's been sitting in my office needing to be onboarded for
4-6 months.
Yeah, maybe 4 months. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Hey, we all have those.
we dip
tasks.
into it a little bit though.
It's a skeleton in your closet.
Yeah. A skeleton in my office. Our office now.
Right.
Super desk.
We did a super desk.
Yeah.
And hey, owners have a lot going on. And one of the things that they have going on could be hating their employees.
Right. Right.
What?
Right. Well, yeah. So we'll just spend some time unpacking, exploring,
And maybe we even preface with we don't hate our employees.
No, we're talking about everyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we never have,
Well, of
and
course,
never will.
Of course. No, you don't actually hate your employees, but there can be some serious frustration involved between owners or just managers and baristas. So we'll be exploring that. And I think that we did a podcast a while back. Everything wrong with your business is your fault. And that was one of my favorite podcasts we've ever done on the podcast. And I know you weren't there, Riley, so that wasn't like a indirect jab at you. So let's just address that right now.
It would have only been better if you were there.
But I think I enjoyed that one so much because I think about that constantly.
It's a rock bed, man.
Extreme ownership.
Bedrock.
Or a bedrock, either one or both. And I think there'll be an underlying theme throughout this whole program that even if baristas or employees of a coffee shop do have things they can improve on, really it's all the owner's fault.
Yeah.
Because it's their coffee shop.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely the spoiler alert of this podcast.
Of course.
Is it does just come back to the owner. But, it's important to notice and like discern the differences between owners and their employees, what causes that kind of friction, and what you can do to alleviate, assuage. Because there are things you can do. And I think probably what we've seen is the more that we were able to kind of, work on this in show prep, maybe those feelings were of old, of like, oh yeah, I remember feeling that way. But honestly, the more you can clearly communicate your role and your team member's role, it's just gonna be better.
Yeah, and even from the standpoint of when I was a barista, I would have liked for someone to tell me how I could get better and move up and make more money and have more longevity. So
and if you were doing something that your like boss or leader was getting annoyed by, wouldn't you?
I was.
Oh yeah, yeah. Wouldn't you want them to like communicate that clearly and kindly so that you can do those things?
Or even like some guys on a podcast who you don't know telling you so that there's no like ego involved, right?
Right. No ego here. That's for sure. And there's such an opportunity when you work anywhere, but at a coffee shop, in this podcast, to learn very valuable lessons that you can take with you in your career. So first thing that came to mind when we were recording last week was I don't want to sound just like a grumpy old man on this podcast either. That's like
you're
just
young, man. You're young and spry.
I am right on the line of millennial and Gen Z.
We're cuspers over here.
We're cuspers. Is that what it is?
Yeah, that's what they say.
You're cusping, Russ.
Okay. Well, from a cusped position, the first point is personal mismanagement. And specifically, first thing that came to mind was that baristas will take a lot of time off. And we offer paid time off at Valor. And in case you're wondering how much and how we structure that, we'll tell you. Basically, it's just however many days per week you work consistently, that's how many days you get off, paid time off you get. So if you work 5 days a week, you can bookend a trip on the weekends of your shift and then get 5 days paid time off. Is that how we still do it?
That's right, Ross.
And 2 sick days.
And 2 sick days as well.
Mm-hmm. And that's just for your, like, you got hired at Valor. If you keep tenure and keep working, that can grow.
It does, yes. But the tension is that people will take lots of time off, but it's unpaid time off. So they're not getting paid for it.
That's right.
And they'll go on a trip and be away from work, which inconveniences the rest of the team, but it's great to take time off. You should totally do it. But then because maybe the details of the trip are mismanaged, or maybe there's not any like decompress time or like self-care time after the trip before you jump back into work because work isn't prioritized, and because you're young, then you're sick because you're exhausted from your trip, and then you take more time off work because you're sick, or you maybe get other people sick that are behind the bar, or underperform because you're sick right after you were gone for a long time. And that really, like we said it earlier, like that's less of just like this barista is a bad person and more just like that's just a young person thing to do. Like I did that.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, and that's where it kind of toes the funny line of like, you know, you can't control what people do outside of work. However, we do live, you know, our culture is like we want to invest in the people while they're here in whatever way we can, and that's also like personal development. And so I think one of the biggest things for your personal development is to live a healthy lifestyle. And so we often, you know, have seen people who don't get much sleep. They maybe like hang out with their friends like all the time. That's a funny thing, especially from our stance where it's like we have families, so it's like we're done with work and we like go home.
Lame.
But there's something to that and to like the rhythms of life. But it's like you don't just outwardly come and be like, hey, I think you're hanging out with your friends a little too much.
Text me when you get home.
Because that's like that's at which point if I was in that situation and my boss was telling me that, I would be like,
get out of my business.
Stay out of my life, bro.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but there is that very real dynamic that happens where you're the boss and you're watching your team work, or maybe you're working alongside them, and it's like this person seems really tired and off. I wonder why.
Right.
And they're underperforming in whatever way. Maybe they're going slow, or they're a lot less present with guests, or whatever it may be. And then you're faced with the kind of awkward decision of like, what do I do about that as the leader who is trying to deliver a good experience for these guests, right? So Ethan, what do we do?
Oh, Ross. Yeah, I don't know if you're out there and you're listening. You're like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's totally our space, our cafe, or oh yeah, that's totally been me before. But it's layered, and I feel like you can see how there's just maybe an inherent struggle with personal management for younger people in like entry-level jobs. And so different types of businesses structured differently to address that issue. Like I think about, you know, because we started Valor from a place of being baristas. And so we're like, we want to do this. We want to do this. We want to have a set schedule so everybody can know when they're working. But what you see is other places that maybe have to rely on like a bigger team, and they have to hire more people, and they're seeing that a bunch of people go out of town. They're like, okay, we're just going to hire too many people, and then we're going to like just poop out the schedule every 2 weeks because we have no idea what's happening. And that's like a really up and down work environment. And I don't think that's very stable. Obviously, do what you got to do for your business, but that was something we always try to stay away from. And so I think one of the key factors to this is clarity up front. I always know an interview is going really well when someone is asking like, what are you looking for? And how can I know if that's who I am for the job, you know, or like they're asking about time off in the interview. And it's a great space to like communicate, okay, thank you so much for talking about this. You know, we want you to have time off. Here's what it can look like. We even say that we don't want our team, if you're going to come join the pit crew, we don't want you taking more than 6 weeks of unpaid time off. And what's funny is for some people, that sounds like, how would I ever miss work for 6 weeks? And for some people, it's like, well, how am I going to get to this thing, this thing, this thing, this thing, this thing, this thing, and still do this thing and this thing? Because that's the reality is young people, and I mean, anyone, you have a lot going on. Like I feel like it's so easy to villainize your team when you see that time off request come in, whether that's like through your email or like a work chat, and you're like, oh no, a problem. Because that's what it is. That's what it comes down to for me, or like the person making the schedule, is like a problem. Oh no, somebody needs to get covered. But I mean, if you know these people, and that's what's so cool is when you can have like a deep relationship with your staff, I can even come to them like in earnest or in vulnerability and be like, guys, I got a lot of time off requests this month. We're going to need to really help each other out to make this work. And it's just really cool to see how well people are like, oh yeah, change anything about my schedule, anything we can do to make sure this person can go to this wedding. Because it's not like these people are just having big bucks and they're taking vacation after vacation. It's usually like, I'm going to a wedding to visit these people, or my family takes this trip once a year and it's really important to me. And so I kind of jumped around a little bit, but if I back up all the way to like the 6 weeks unpaid, being able to communicate up top to somebody like how your business runs, like, hey, Valor's not the kind of place where you'll just kind of figure out your schedule every 2 weeks. Valor's the kind of place where when you get hired, you're agreeing to these shifts, Sunday through Thursday, open, close, mid, open, close. Like, that's how it's going to be. I mean, and then if it changes, there's going to be communication about that change. And we kind of up the ante on like professionalism in that way of like, hey, this is a real job. We want to pay you as best as we can. And we want you to feel like you're responsible for your shifts, And so it's really, 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 really encouraging when you see people like do really considerate like time off requests. Be like, hey, if you switch me to an open on my last day, I'll be able to leave from there and I'll be off on my 2 normal off days. So I'm just requesting off one day. And then the next day, if you could put me on as a close, I can come back and work and it'll be cool. So getting to that place of like really healthy and cooperative communication is such a gift, because we only have like 9 to 10 people at a time, like in Alpharetta right now. And so it's really tight to try to have 5 or 6 people on every day. And so even one time off request can like kind of ruffle that. But knowing that I have backups on every day and I know that I can move things around because everybody wants to cover each other is such a gift.
I think one thing I want to point out is how you were talking about having a close relationship with the people on your team. You are giving them context and you're giving them your vulnerability. And I think that really unlocks a lot of understanding in the team, where if you're struggling to cover their shift, all of a sudden, like when you show vulnerability and you're like, hey, I'm struggling with this, like, can you guys help me out? They're seeing themselves as a part of the whole team, instead of just like they're just trying to get their side of it covered.
Right.
I think that really unlocks a lot. So it's like at that position, your job is really more so just like a facilitator or like a configurer. Like you're trying to just configure this system to where it works, and each part is aware of the other person. So I love that.
Yeah, but to quickly summarize, when it comes to taking time off, I feel like as an owner, if you can understand what the limits are and like what the rules are, you can communicate that to your team really easily. So you don't always feel like a bad guy if for some reason you have to say no. I will say we rarely have to say no, because people are so collaborative with changing their schedules to like cover each other.
Yeah.
And something you were talking about with personal management, maybe like the getting sick or the like, they have so much going on in their lives, and like, how do you as a leader like step into that space? That comes down for us. We have a service philosophy called Eyes Up. And I've been harping on that a lot in our orientations about, when you're at this point in your life, typically that you're working at Valor or a coffee shop, oftentimes you're like also trying to find your life partner, you're also like figuring out your, like, maybe you recently moved out and you're like just trying to like find your identity in the world. You're at like this crossroads of like a lot of change. And so what's hard is that a lot of times you can kind of go eyes in or even eyes down, like you're just like working on your task. But we talk about going eyes in as in like you're just considering yourself for the day and be like, man, how do I, and someone's in a low spot at work if they're using the words like, oh, I just got to get through this day. Like, oh, I just got to get through this. But we really try to encourage like having your eyes up and looking out for people, because we're in the hospitality industry, is such a gift because, we really go through some of the most transformation when we're in a like posture of service towards other people, and we're not just like kind of self-absorbed with our needs. But honestly, putting those down for a little bit and considering the needs of others at work is really healing when you're trying to figure all this stuff out, the stuff that's very real and very important. And I think I had a harder time communicating that earlier on in my like time as an owner and a leader, because it sounds like, hey, your stuff doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Don't think about this. This is work.
Leave all your problems
at the door.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to hear about it. And you can hear that, and that's fine. But what I'm telling you is that there's something even better for you to walk in, and which is like, hey, it's going to be better for you to leave it all at the door and say, I'm going to just focus on other people right now. And I think you're going to be a lot better off learning how to consider others while you're going through your own stuff.
Right.
So that really helps personal mismanagement.
Yeah, it reframes that. So how about the second point? Complaining without a solution. This is a big concept we talk about a lot within our teams of if you're operating a system or a process, you are focused on just that small part of the whole business, right? But like, obviously there's all these other cogs that are moving in different departments, and even within the same department, so much going on. You're operating this one thing, and maybe there's this one friction point of that process, and it bugs you and it annoys you, and you have to do it every day, and it feels like no one else understands that problem the way you do. And so it's easy just to like let that frustration out towards your boss or the owner in the situation, and just be like, this system sucks, or like, this espresso machine sucks, this steam wand sucks, this grinder does not work, right? And it's like, that's a real frustration. But whenever an owner, like, really, like, you said this recently, actually Alex Hormozy said this, but you brought it to Valor, which you're so good at that, Riley, I love you. The business's problems are your problems. I've been thinking about that a lot. How like when you're the owner, it may just seem like all you're doing is fixing problems.
You're putting words in my mouth. That's not what I said.
What'd you say?
I'm just kidding. It kind of is what I said. I said that
like, the business problems are your problems.
Yeah, but it was actually like the business's problems are your job.
Your job. Okay.
That is the entirety. Like that's really, it's like 80% of the owner's job. Yeah. And we've seen that in that my Valor problems document that we made back in December.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
That's what I and we have been working on all year.
Yeah.
Just like those problems. And we pulled up the list at our last owners meeting, or like 2 owners meetings ago. And we read back through it and we were like, oh, fixed.
Yeah. It's like, okay, because that's because what we've been doing.
Yeah. In the
for our
process,
jobs.
fixed. And yeah, so, I would say, first of all, if you're the owner, then you should do the same. Like, spend some time looking and thinking about the biggest problems that you have, because odds are if you tackle those, that's the most valuable use of your time possible.
Yeah. It's just like freeing a little, blockage that's in this gear from turning in the whole system.
Yeah. And then the problems will never go away. I think that's his other point.
Yeah.
It's like, that is the business.
That's your role as the leader, is to optimize the system for success, so that the people that are operating that system can do it in a way that they're set up for success. But this is just back to like, it's all your responsibility or fault as an owner. But if you're constantly hearing your staff complain about the grinder, and you're thinking in your brain like, okay, I'm the one that's going to have to spend $3,000 to replace this grinder. Like
$4,000 EG1.
Right? EG1, yeah.
You can't upgrade. You can't get anything better.
But this barista is the one complaining about it all the time. Like, what are they going to contribute? And it's like, no, they're not supposed to. But as someone in the role of employee or barista, what we recommend to our team is no complaining without a solution. So, of course, there's going to be problems with a system you're operating, that it can always be improved. But instead of just airing your complaints, maybe consider how that will be received by the owner, and consider how that affects them. Because it's, as a barista too, it's like it's your personal responsibility to like help everyone around you thrive, including your boss. Mm-hmm. It's not just like you're just getting stuff from your boss all the time. It's like, yeah, no, you actually have a personal responsibility to like set other people around you up for success and be charitable to them in the way you communicate. So if there is a problem with the grinder, maybe have a little understanding of like, I know that, he's got a lot going on his plate right now. He's dealing with all these other problems. But that is where, as the owner, you should have a system or process for how complaints or improvements you should have a project intake system. And that's what we call challenge the status quo. You've probably heard us talk about it on the podcast before, maybe not. But on our communication platform with our team called Basecamp, we have this part of Basecamp called challenge the status quo, where anyone that has a suggestion or any problems they're facing, or any just way they want to challenge the status quo of how we do things, they create a new card in there, a new project, describe it. But then the magic is that they give their own suggestion or suggestions of how to fix that. So then all of a sudden, like, they have more buy-in in solving this problem, so that it's not just like they're airing a complaint. And then you, as the owner, this project is maybe 40% of the way done, and you can just kind of take it across the finish line and just like buy the thing or research the thing a little bit more. And I wish we used it more. We don't use it enough. I know that like, and that's really just us needing to emphasize it more. But when it has been used, it's been really awesome. And that, again, that's just, as the owner, it's you taking responsibility for your barista's need to improve their system. Mm-hmm. It's like, yes, your barista is the one operating that grinder, and it's not maybe you on the daily, but you're setting them up for success, knowing that they are going to have problems in their role and they need a way to actually bring those to light.
Yeah, we talk about it in servant leadership, about there's the biggest line in like the org chart, and the upside down triangle is this line between guests and your like pit crew, or your like baristas. And it just makes total sense that the most problems are going to come from like the biggest area of your company, which is the day-to-day operations. And so the more you're removed from that, your only experience is going to most likely be like squeaky wheel stuff of like, hey, here's a problem. Hey, here's a problem. But if your mindset isn't, I'm here to solve problems so that my team can thrive, it's probably just going to sound really annoying, and you're going to be like a very avoidant of your team.
Yes.
Yeah. Moving on, I think the next reason would be, I don't know if I'd call it entitlement or maybe false expectation, where I think maybe we talked about it on the last episode. I think we brought up maybe the expectation that coffee shops make a lot of money based on the top line, how maybe a cafe can be doing $1 million in sales, and then the barista can reflect on that and be like, wait a second, we're making $1 million top line in sales and I only make $12 an hour in tips. And I think owners can see that perception, and be jaded from that. Because, and this is a big because, the owner just hasn't educated on what profit even means. And maybe there's some secrecy. Maybe maybe it does look like the owner is taking all the money from the business, and maybe that even is the case in some instances, or has been the case at some previous businesses where the barista feels like used, and then the owner's like, in reality, is like, I only made $40,000 last year, and you're complaining about your pay.
Everyone feels underappreciated.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. But the reason that that's happening is that there's zero communication and education.
Yeah. And there's isolation.
Yeah.
Like it feels like as the owner, you're just on an island and no one understands you. Your baristas don't get the struggles that you have. It's like it's like them against you. And then you take to the VCC, the Valor Coffee community, and you're like, these baristas don't understand me. Just kidding. Nobody really does that. But I think whenever you start to feel that old familiar feeling of isolation, like there's a communication gap, there's a your calibration, like your understanding needs to be calibrated with your team. You need to examine yourself, maybe include a trusted friend. Maybe if you're a wholesale partner, give me a call and we can talk through it. That's a call to action. That it's a time to do self-examination and ask yourself, like, what am I not communicating? Because it's back to this like context and vulnerability thing. Not that you should tell your team every single financial struggle of your business, but providing more context of like, hey, these are our numbers for this month, and this is how much profit we have, and here's where it's going. I think you should trust your baristas enough to share that knowledge with them,
or get them to sign an NDA.
And that's why we get our team to sign an NDA. It's not because we're wanting them to keep secrets about Valor, like dirty secrets from the world, so they can't tell anyone. It's so that we can tell them everything. It's so that we can tell them every number of our business, because that kind of context really, really gives a lot more understanding for how the business operates.
That's good. It's good.
Yeah, maybe we can jump to the next. I think a pretty big reason that we've walked through is another dissonance of passion for your industry, and it just being a job. Mm-hmm. Because we started Valor because
Valor.
Yeah, Valor. We're obsessed with coffee. That's like something that we fell in love with, and we want to do that for maybe the rest of our lives. And the reality is, a lot of times people are just looking for a good job, and maybe they've applied at 10 places in their local area. And there's something about working at a coffee shop. Everybody just, I think, likes the idea of it. So you might find someone that's a really great person and they are great with guests, but maybe they just don't like coffee that much, or they're not that passionate about coffee. And you're trying to push the needle of oh, I'm in specialty coffee. I want my menu to be like this. I want to bring on these really cool coffees. Say you're even like a multi-roaster. You're like, I'm bringing this coffee from Sweden. It's going to be crazy. And someone is like, I'm just going to drink my iced chai. Nothing wrong with that. But it's like that's a really easy way for you to, I don't know, not connect on the vision of what you're doing. And pretty easy red flag here that, hey, maybe you should be doing your research and making sure you want to hire people that like coffee.
Yeah.
But I get it too. We want to go for service. We want to go for great hospitality. So what do you start with? Do you start with someone who likes coffee and try to make them be nice? Or do you start with someone that is really great with people and try to get them to like coffee?
Yeah.
Because sometimes there's not always both when you need to hire somebody.
Yeah. This main point is really on my mind on every single point we've made so far, which is that as the owner, you need to configure your time and your schedule and your pay and the rest of your payroll. You need to configure all those variables in a way that allows margin for you to solve problems, for that to be your job. And it goes back to, I think, what we talked about in the last it was the one before that about don't hire a manager for your coffee shop. Because let's just say you own a coffee shop and you're paying a general manager $50K a year, and then you have an assistant manager, and then you're also paying baristas, and there's like $25K left for you. You have to have another job, like especially if you have a family. And so you don't have time. You haven't configured your life or your payroll in a way that allows for margin that you need to solve problems. And so if you're paying yourself enough to like actually have that time, then whenever a problem comes, it's not overwhelming, and it's not like, well, I have 50,000 things on my plate. The last thing I need is another problem. Then you're like, no, like this is an opportunity to improve my business and to reduce friction in this operation and set up the rest of my team for success. So I feel like that's just like underlying through all of this is maybe a core issue.
Is just owners not having the bandwidth or the mindset to take on the problems of their company.
Yeah. Yeah. And so then they just view the problems as like, oh, this is the last thing I need right now. But really, like, that's what your job should be. And then it breeds resentment with the team, because the team's always giving problems. The team's asking for more money. The team is they're underskilled. Because I would say, like, in the question of, do you want to hire nice people that aren't into coffee versus not nice people that love coffee? I would absolutely rather have a nice person that is not into coffee.
Right.
But if you're going to do that, then you need to have a really rigorous training program. And that takes time to develop that. And so, but if you don't have time to create that, I know we've been in this position, right? So like, we've talked about it before, but we're in a time where we had so many awesome, nice people, but the passion for coffee wasn't there like we wanted it to be. But then we, like, again, back to extreme ownership, we're like, what are we doing to like push that needle forward? What are we doing to invest in these people and create passion and educate? It's like, well, we're not really doing much. We don't have those systems. We don't have those online courses like Barista 101 that we have now. But if owners don't have that time in their schedule, then those systems aren't going to be created. So it just kind of all comes back to that for me.
Yeah. A part of that's just the trouble you can get yourself into by like keeping your head down and only being focused on the macro. You're focused on the macro, they're running the business, and then your baristas are focused on the micro, which is like, what am I going to do because Susie just had to go home sick?
Yeah, now we're understaffed.
And I can't get Ethan to answer the phone.
Because he's thinking about the macro.
Because he's over here on macro.
He's counting his macros.
Yeah. So, that's, I would say for single owners who are very, very involved, maybe that's not the biggest part because it's probably is your problem when someone calls out. But I would say think about how the less you're seen, the less that you are outwardly involved in those things, the more it's going to feel like, oh, I'm on an island by myself as the barista.
Mhm.
Yeah, maybe we could start, giving some hope to this puzzle of like, how do we close that gap? How do we meet in the middle, build context, build vulnerability? And the biggest thing coming to my mind is, how do we not just expect our team, our employees, to be who we want them to be if we're not leading them? So what does it look like for you to, as the owner or as the leader, step in and start talking about how you guys can professionally grow? If someone is mismanaging their time and they're putting in time off requests late and they're showing up sick and they're like complaining about how the dumpster's too far away from the building, it's like, are we talking about it, or are we just getting mad about it and complaining about it later?
Well, yeah, we have to drive home the point that no one is ever going to care as much as you do as the owner of your business. And I hear people say it all the time in passing, or even just, classic conversation topic with the other owner of a business is, well, I just gotta do things myself because no one's going to do it like me. And it's like, yeah, obviously that's how it's probably always going to be, unless you're hiring like a very specialized task that you will just never learn how to do. And even with that, the person might not do it with the same amount of care and intentionality because it's not their business.
Yeah.
Ownership and equity it speaks volumes towards what you're willing to bend and do for your business. So you have to start from that place that, of course, they don't care as much as you, and they're never going to.
So what are you going to do next?
Quit.
Yeah, just quit.
Yeah. Just quit.
It's not worth it.
And something we've seen over the years that has been awesome is slowly, every time a problem comes up, and I'm bad at this, all right, but it's real if you can do it. If you can invite someone into the solution and show someone, okay, hey, it looks like the fridge is being weird. I'm going to do this and this and this. Little SOP, little standard operating procedure, and let's see if we can get this thing back running. Next time it happens, and that person that you showed is behind the bar, they could probably take care of it, and they probably don't have to call you wherever you're doing, counting your macros, that you don't even know that there was a problem. And that over the last, I don't know, I think it's almost six or 7 years now in Alpharetta, like first couple of years, oh man, getting calls left and right of like, there's a problem. But now I show up and, hey, how was the weekend? Oh, it was good. There was this problem, but we took care of it. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
Just over time, I think trying to invest in your team and teach and create problem solvers goes a really long way.
Yeah. When we say the business's problems are your job, we don't mean you singularly solve every single one of those problems A to Z. It means you, as you solve those problems, you include people in on that so that they can also have that same mentality. But I think again, like with solutions for this problem that we've been talking about, is as the leader of your business, as the owner, I think the most important part of your job, of our job sitting here at this table, is that we very clearly understand the priorities of our business. What are the most important things in our business? And how do we configure and orient our team in a way that serves those priorities and they're invited along in those priorities? And I do mean core values, yes, but I more so mean like, what are we doing? Like, what are we focusing on right now in this season, on this week, on this day? Where are we going? Because like that's the essence of a leader. The essence of a leader with Ross Walters is they are going somewhere, and there are people following that person towards a thing. And if you as a leader are just like, I don't know, man, we're just, operating a coffee shop, and it's like, no, that's actually not enough. Like, there needs to be something that you are orienting yourself towards. And I want, like, if we can just give a quick example of like what that is for our business. In our all staff meetings, we do a quarterly emphasis or initiative.
That's right.
And I think that has really added a lot of color to our team's growth.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's easy to have a quarterly initiative, and you can think about it for 2 weeks, and then it kind of fizzles out. But what has been really helpful is going into breakout groups per like station, whether it's HQ or one of the cafes, and being like, okay, how can we live this out and grow in this core value in 12 different ways, and we can bust that up as a one weekly focus, you know? So what are 12 ways that it looks to, know that it's cool to care? And how can we focus on that week by week?
And it doesn't have to always be this like kind of amorphous culture thing like empathy. Like one time our initiative was speed. Literally just go faster. Like how can we serve our guests with more speed? And so it doesn't have to always kind of just be this like philosophical type core value thing. That's what I'm saying when I'm like, know the priorities of your business. It doesn't have to always be a core value. It can just be like, hey, our team is slipping in this way, and you as the leader have to see that, have the eyes to see that, and then be able to orient the team towards solving that problem.
With all of that, with the vision, I think you have to be real with yourself and say, like, is this a good place to work? Should, like, are my baristas rightfully disgruntled by making X amount or getting 0 PTO or having 0 upward mobility? Because, I probably would be as well if I was just in a job where, maybe there's no vision from ownership and there's nowhere for me to go other than this position. So even just speaking from personal experience, like we used to not have these pay bands, and we used to not have, the ability to, see, we would give it in like a more loose sense. It was like, hey, you've been doing a good job, here's a raise. But now there's more structured, like, hey, what can I do to be making this much? And we're like, okay, you can do this, 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 and this. And then if they're going to do that, is up to them and, whether they're going to invest their time. So if you don't have anything like that, then, maybe you should consider being better.
Yeah. Yeah. Just because we as owners are overworked or feel bogged down does not mean that the baristas have a good work environment. I think that's an easy trap to fall into, where it's like barista, like disgruntled employee, and they're complaining about something, and you're like, well, I'm over here busting my butt. And it's like, okay, well,
good for you.
You're both frustrated. Granted.
Sounds like a marriage.
Yeah.
Who's got it worse? Who's got a worse competition?
Who's doing more?
Who did more dishes in the past month?
100%. But really, like, it's on you, man, as a leader, to like just zoom out of that frustration and self-analyze your business and your system, because it's your job to improve the system of your business, the machine that your machines. Wow, the machine that your employees are operating. So I just think like zooming out of that emotional toll, that emotional frustration of like, I'm just overworked and it's still not enough for you. Like that's a real rough place to be.
Yeah. Maybe my last piece is just as a empathetic nod. It is personal. It's hard when an employee has something really negative to say about the business, because it is your business. It feels like it's your thing. So in essence, it feels like a personal attack. So how do you learn to dissociate or, delineate between, okay, they're just talking about the system that they're operating in. They're not talking about me as a human, But that can be hard. That
So
can be
hard.
emotional. But there's something to being able to step back, own your role as a problem solver, equip your team accordingly, and get stuff done.
Guys, I think that was a podcast.
Me too. What are you guys going to do today? Where are we going to go from here?
We got to get lunch.
Lunch, nap, snack, go home.
Do you guys have any snack problems with your kids? We've been battling a snack issue of
Over snacking?
over snacking, maybe not even considering a meal because all he wants is snack.
Yeah, that's us all the time right
Yeah.
now. Is that just raising a kid, you know?
Right. Well, we're starting to establish snack time. Now you don't just get snacks. You have to wait until snack time.
You guys know the Go macro bars?
Oh, yeah.
That's he calls it a cookie bar.
Cookie bar.
So he's always like, I want a cookie bar. Like every meal,
Yeah.
it's a
You just
struggle.
made filet mignon.
It's
and
hard.
he
It's
wants a
hard
cookie
to
bar.
like. We only keep like healthy snacks in our house, and so like Giselle's like, I want blueberries.
Like, I want an entire carton of blueberries.
Right. It's like, how do I say no to that? Like,
Yeah.
she wants to eat fruit. And I compare it to my childhood where I had like friggin' fruit gushers all the
Or
time.
fruit,
But
fruit by the foot.
it's $9 for those organic non-GMO blueberries.
Actually, yes. But at our new house, I just moved, listeners. Okay. That's a life update. There is a blueberry bush.
There you go.
So I was like, thank you, God.
How do I keep this thing going
Yeah.
year round?
She-
Get a
a
little
chamber
greenhouse.
for it.
I hope I'd never buy blueberries ever again.
I hope that for you as well.
Yeah. We buy frozen blueberries though. That's much cheaper.
Do you like I like the wild frozen blueberries.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
what I'm
The
saying.
little
yeah.
ones.
Get a little
Yeah.
yogurt, throw
Get
those
a
in
little
there.
yogurt.
It's fire.
Gets melty. Get a little
Yeah.
syrup.
I put it in my cereal.
Wow.
The blueberries.
I still love cereal.
All right. See y'all
Wow.
next week.